Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Shatar Safira Collier. You are watching Super Live Streams TV. Today, we have a wonderfully exciting and formative panel on funding and strategic partnerships, hosted by Ada Babino, with amazing guests Kay Shaw and Sandra Rattley. And at this time, I'm going to bring up the Super Live Streams founder, Maxie Collier. How are you, Maxie?
Thank you, my dear. You know that little globe over your head looks like a crown, so you look even more like a queen right now.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you so much. Well, you inspire me.
So we are very, very fortunate to have some wonderful guests on this afternoon. I want to start off by introducing my homegirl Ada Babino. And some of you all may have seen our previous session where we talked about funding and financing. Ada and I have known each other since the early 90s, where she was an inspiration for me as she worked on Haile Garima's groundbreaking film, Sankofa. And it was by me vicariously watching the process from the earliest stages through the production, through the post-production, and through the release that I learned so many lessons. So I want to bring on Ada, and Ada's going to introduce our wonderful guest this afternoon, where we're talking about funding and strategic partnerships. Now, this is on a top level discussion, and we are discussing and learning from some veteran executive producers who have a variety of experiences to share. So come on up, Ada, and let's tell us what you're bringing to us today.
Welcome. You, Thank you, Shatar. Thank you all very much. It is always a pleasure to do anything with you all, because I know it's going to be quality. And that is why I was so happy to be able to bring on these next two sisters who I've had the great fortune to work with and learn from over the past 20 years. I mean, the resumes and work experience and accomplishments are extensive in the areas of organizing, where they both began, and then moved into groundbreaking areas in communications, video and film production. They are who I consider masterminds when it comes to creating, developing, cultivating, and expanding strategic partnerships and funding for various projects. So first, I'll introduce them both first, and then we'll go ahead and start with Kay. I'm gonna ask you a question, Kay, from there. But first, I'm going to Sandra Rattley. There you go, Sandy. Sandy's most latest venture is as executive producer, writer, and director of a digital series entitled Unladylike 2020. Which includes animated portraits of 26 diverse women trailblazer. It aired on PBS as American Masters. 1 hour of it was aired on PBS American Masters. And she's also developing an educational curriculum for PBS Learning Media. So those right there are two partnerships we can talk about that she forged. She's also the chief content officer and executive producer for Futuro Media's TV PRS series, America by Numbers, and the digital series, The New Deciders. Among other projects, won Peabody Awards, launched the African Learning Channel for World Space Satellite Radio, and served as a communication consultant for Nelson Mandela on his first U.S. tour, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. I mean, I can't encapsulate everything that Sandy's done in one paragraph, but we'll get into that. And then also Kay Shaw is an experienced media director with a demonstrated history of working in the media production industry, primarily with independent producers. She has strong marketing professionals, skilled in nonprofit organizations, event management, media relations, film production, and grant making. She's created an innovative distribution model also with independent film, Sankofa, the grassroots film that made its way onto the charts and did amazing things. We can talk about that a little bit more. She previously served as director of programming and acquisitions at the National Black Programming Consortium, and she managed a team of program and production associates and digital media staff, as well as Kay was also the former communications director at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. So
yes.
Doing good things. That doesn't even, like I said, that doesn't even say half of what these sisters. I mean, both met I don't know if everyone is familiar with WPFW, Jazz and Justice. It was a station in Washington, D.C., radio station. And also just continued grassroots community organizing from there. So that's how they began. So I wanted to talk about those early beginnings. I mean, we can kind of jump in. It doesn't have to be my turn, your turn, your turn. We can kind of jump in and just have a session, just talk. But I want you to just talk about how you started in community organizing and what you took from there to even get to the point where you are now. What skills and interests led you to on the path that you've gone through over the years, in terms of your development and how that leads to partnerships that you've made over the years with each other and bring on other partners as well. Okay, go ahead. You can start.
Oh, okay. I get to start. Well, it's interesting. My family was not active in the, social justice movement, but I really wanted to be. So after college, I was in Washington, D.C., and I wanted to get my feet totally immersed in it. So I went to WPFW because it was such an activist radio station. And there I met Lauren Crest Love and all kinds of people doing, remember the people who were Sandy, who were against the Contras, everybody who was dealing with any kind of social justice issue was on the air at WPFW. So I got an opportunity to get immersed in media, but also immersed in social justice work. And that led to me getting to know Damu Smith, who was, oh my God.
The preeminent organizer.
Preeminent organizer from the Wilmington 10 all the way to Greenpeace. He was just incredible. Mm-hmm. So from there, I was able to connect with the nuclear disarmament and peace movement. And I would say, because they were so methodical and strategic in the way they approached their work, that they really kind of like gave me the blueprint. So I got the opportunity to learn how to go into communities by myself. I would literally land into a state with a road. This is before waves and GPS. I would have a map. They gave me a map, the names of the people in their chapters. I would literally drive from chapter to chapter throughout a state. I had to be out in the road 3 weeks by myself in the South and Southwest, sleeping on people's sofas, bringing them information about the organization was doing, find out what they were doing. So that was the experience that I applied to independent film distribution. Being able to go into a city, figure out who the stakeholders are, make those connections, and then and bring the community together. So it's not just so the stakeholders are in the churches, they're in the legislature, but they're in the community. So I would basically find stakeholders at every level of a particular community, and then try to get their buy-in. So you've got to come with something. You can't just be asking for stuff all the time. You have to come with something and get their buy-in and support, but also bring something to them that supported their community and interest in their in what they were doing. So I would say that's my early beginnings, and that's also how I was able to create the distribution model for Sankofa.
So actually, my media experience precedes WPFW by a couple of notches. I actually got a job with a city government agency in DC, the Department of Recreation, and a monthly radio show came with the job, and I inherited it. And I never really knew I had, a voice for radio. I really kind of was doing this radio show that was supposed to be letting people in the city know what free events and the city had available for them. Kind of from that, I got involved in local DC politics. I was very seriously influenced by SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And we were looking at how do you take kind of activism into politics, and trying to get progressive candidates elected in Washington, D.C. on the school board. I'm trying to work on issues such as gun violence, etc. And I got involved in media because, as folks said, I was not as energetic as Kay in terms of going door to door, ringing people's doorbells. I mean, we did that for organizing, passing out flyers, but it was just kind of like, we need a way to transmit information to reach a large number of people without it having to be so labor intensive. So I actually got involved with radio, doing news for Howard University's radio station, WHUR. And I won't say the year, but it was quite a while ago. I will say the year, 1974. And really began to understand the power of media in terms of influencing people, in terms of sharing information. And in some ways, I saw media as a tool for political organizing. And I think around the time I got involved at WHUR, I also got involved in the anti-apartheid movement. And with an organization in DC, that Damu Smith was also a part of, the Southern Africa Support Project, and we did things like radiothons to raise money for building a hospital in Mozambique, for really giving support in Zimbabwe, and really looking at the conditions in Africa. And so that political organizing really helped to form kind of the focus of much of my early life as a journalist, which was working on issues related to Africa and economic development in Africa. And I eventually got a master's in economic development in African studies, kind of coming out of that, looking at the impact of satellite communications on economic development in Africa. So it's all kind of been part of a long narrative. Kind of one thing has kind of overlapped and led to another. And it is really, to me, as Kay said, it is the same things I didn't learn as a community organizer, is just doing it on a bigger scale.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that is critical, because for me, it's like you all both start at a very young age. So when you have these young folks now who have more at their disposal, because we're dealing with, we don't have to have maps in our hand, Kay.
Yeah, social media didn't exist when we were
right. No social media. So for you all to be able to accomplish what you did at such a young age with the resources that were non-existent that are existed now, what would you suggest to young people who have more at their disposal to merge the two, the knowledge of what they want to do in terms of really reaching their community, whether it's political, whether it's social justice? What would you suggest now that they can do, and what skills do they need also going into that to, I guess, push forward their desires or God to do something that's purposeful or passionate, or perhaps purposeful in this world, especially with social justice and some of the issues that we're facing today.
I'm going to jump in, Ada, and just say that I think that for us, things were somewhat one-dimensional in that we didn't have the opportunities for streaming. We didn't have the opportunities in terms of cable distribution. We didn't have the opportunities for, independent distribution existed, but as Kay can describe, it was very difficult. But now you can create on your own. You can post on YouTube. There are so many things you can do without needing a superstructure to necessarily do it. The thing that I'm really amazed that young people are doing today, and I think they're in the leadership of doing it, is they're taking other ideas and they're finding new formats and new ways of presenting them. So, for example, I'm working with a young person who is looking at social justice ideas, but creating a video game around how you do it. So that it's not just a one-dimensional thing of you got to take every single penny you have and work for 10 years to make a film. I think that younger people, because of the technology they have available to them, can go from 0 to 100 in a much shorter time period using the technology that's available and figuring out even new forms of presentation and distribution that we didn't even think about and weren't available to us.
Mm-hmm. Well, but you know, the fundamentals are the same with and without technology. You still have to build the networks and the relationships. You still have to show up at the conferences and film festivals to find out what's going on. You still have to develop, be forthright in the relationships that you have and follow through. You still have to maintain communications with people. So all that is still the same, whether it's you're doing crowdfunding, you're doing proposals to arts and other organizations, whether you're doing pitching, you still have the fundamentals that you have to have. So you can have, the technology is incredible. It gives you a lot more independence than we had in terms of being able to create content. But once you create it, what happens to it?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I agree that I think that we are still creating community. Mm-hmm. I think that the challenges of COVID, as well as the opportunities of new technology, mean we have to find new ways to create that community. It may not be person to person, it may not be door to door, it may not be, like Kay said, actually going into a community and going to churches. Or trying to figure out where people meet. We are still trying to figure out what are those core ideas that really activate people and magnetize people, and how do you reach them? I mean, it's still important to figure out. You have to have a distribution mechanism for whatever it is. I mean, a lot of times people create great things, but where's it, as Kay said, where's it going to go? You still have to figure out a marketing strategy, and you still have to figure out who are the other organizations that are working around the issues that you care about? And because you need to tap into their members, you need to tap into their constituents and the people that they influence. I mean, people, even though it's electronic, people are still using newsletters, people are still using e-blasts, in terms of press releases, et cetera, to get the information out. So I don't think it's an either or. I think it is, we have to still use those fundamentals, but we are applying them to new circumstances and but we're still
adapting them to the technology.
Yes, using the technology, adapting to the new circumstances. But as Kay said, using the same fundamental ideas for organizing and distribution. Those are still the two key things. If you ain't organized, I mean, you can, creativity is, I think, in some ways very unpredictable because that spark, that idea comes to you, and so. In some ways, that's very unpredictable. But the predictable part has got to be who you're partnering with to help you get your work out, and how are you creating community? How are you marketing? And how are you making sure that you have impact? Because that's the thing that funders and all of your strategic partners, that's the question they want to know. I mean, the thing that we used to do when we would talk about impact is we were just counting bodies, and we'd say, well, 100 people came. Yeah. And people don't so much care about that metric, the attendance metric. Mm-hmm. They're not so interested in that. They want to know what happened. How were people impacted by your message? How did you actually implement change? So I think to some degree, those of us as makers, we have like a higher standard now that we have to represent when folks say, how did you actually impact change?
And so when I would talk about fundamentals, one of the things that every funder asks us, in every grant application, who is your audience? Mm-hmm. Who is your audience? Well, the people you want to impact. Now they use language like impact, and they want you to show metrics. You got to gather data. You got to you got to show proof of your impact in terms of behavior change or something that happens in the community. But you still have to start with who are you trying to reach, and what do you need to do? What is your message to get them to listen to you and to buy into what you're doing? So you still have to start there, and before you can have impact. And a lot of times people think, I want to reach everybody. Remember that, Sandy?
That's right. That's right.
Everybody.
The audience, the world.
The world. Everyone. Anyone who's interested. Yeah. It's not a field of dreams. If you they will come, it doesn't quite work that way. Sometimes it happens for people. They're lucky.
Yes.
It's really thinking about what is my message? What do I have to offer? And why would they listen? Why would they come? Why would they turn on? You know.
Well, you know what? I think when you say that the buzzword thing that I'm trying to reach everybody, is there a turn off when you say I'm just trying to reach, Black folk? Or do you have to be more specific, women between the age of such and such and such and such? And then do you have to specify, those women spend a certain amount of money? I'm trying to reach those women because they spend. I mean, how specific do you have to go when you're trying to forge partnerships or get grants for a specific project?
They will tell you.
Well, Ada, one of the things that I think, we were talking about our lives kind of as these narratives where all the parts are really kind of woven together, almost like a quilt. So you and I, Ada, worked together at Howard University Center for Urban Progress, and that's when I actually got trained. I didn't even know that that's what I was trying to do as a person who was an expert in qualitative research. And so that is a skill that has really helped me as a media maker because as Kay said, research is a critical factor of everything that we do. So we're used to researching our subject material, or we're looking at history, we're used to researching that, or we're used to researching characters, or, we're used to researching locations. But now what we really have to do is, for every issue that we're looking at, we have to research who is the most impacted. So it's not so much a matter of saying, I want to reach Black women, but if I'm saying that I'm really concerned, let's say, about, I'm doing a film on birth defects, or I'm doing a film on how the parole justice system doesn't work, or whatever, I'm supposed to do the research to see who's the most affected by that issue. And then based on that research, that establishes who my audience is. And then I also have to research who are the other organizations that are working in that area. And those are my automatic partners. So in some ways, our original ideas are still our ideas. It's not as if, the marketplace is determining what it is we want to focus on. But when we come to the marketplace, we have to be clear on who is the most impacted and how are we reaching both the decision makers in that area as well as those impacted to make sure something happens. Now that even works not just in news and public affairs around critical issues, but it works around entertainment as well. We still have to have an idea and do some research on what is the audience that is most likely to want to tune in and or buy a certain thing. So if I'm going to pitch something to Netflix, regardless of what it is, I have to already be armed with some research to be able to say, this is who I think this will appeal to. And I can say that based on what the metrics are for other things, to say that this is like X and that appeal to these audiences. And I feel that my work will have a comparable audience appeal. So we're still, as creators, we really, I think, have to move more and more into the area of research to help to support the argument we're making for the potential success of anything we're doing.
What I do like about young people today is, unlike, you, Ada, Sandy, and I, unlike those times, we had to be media maker. We had to be the person who write the press release, had to call the TV station and the newspaper. We had to go to all the meetings. We had to be
everywhere.
We did everything.
Mm-hmm.
We had to have skill sets in so many areas. Young people understand that, especially given the technology, you can partner, but you can also, you build a team. One of the things I really focused on when I worked with media makers at Black Public Media is that you don't have to do all this by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you do all this by yourself, it's going to take you 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, the trend would have come and gone 5 times.
Yeah.
For the content that you're producing. Build a team, create a production company so that the film or the project you're doing doesn't completely wipe you out, but also you can do multiple things at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of everything so focused for 10 years on this one piece, and then you're exhausted and wiped out for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I used to also tell filmmakers all the time that making one film or one series does not make you a filmmaker. You have to make the second one and the third one and the fourth one before you can become really a filmmaker.
You're right.
So building a team that brings different skills, different networks, different relationships, and coming together to advance what you're doing. Working together will get you further faster than trying to do it all by yourself.
That is a challenge, to build a trusted team that you can really.
We were a team.
I know, but we came together and kind of, I mean, like Kay was the mastermind with Sankofa, and Sandy did editing and whatever. Sandy did whatever. So
I was writing funding proposals. I did a video fundraising pitch for Highly for Sankofa. I mean, we did, like Kay said, we did everything. But I just want to add one other thing relative to media making and what Kay said about having to work on multiple fronts in a different sort of way. Mm-hmm. So I feel like as makers, we are having to operate on multiple fronts. So we may have our own dream projects that we're producing, but we also have to go out there and kind of sell ourselves and our services. So we may be doing work for other people, and we may also be working in collectives with groups of other people or makers to make things happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that the whole idea of both funding and strategic partnerships means that we may be cultivating those partnerships for our own dream projects. We may be cultivating those partnerships by subcontracting our work and our skills to others. And we may also be trying to put together a collective to work on bigger issues. But the thing is that where the strategy comes in is making sure that all of these relationships are relationships that you form intentionally. I mean, sometimes relationships basically are just, you don't know who you're going to meet along the way, but everybody that you meet, you have to assume is a keeper. That everybody you meet, I mean, maybe in the next project.
Everybody.
Well, I'm just saying it. Well, I mean, maybe some people aren't, but I'm just saying that in maintaining that network, you never know when somebody you may have met 2 projects back or 10 years ago, maybe somebody that has a linkage for you or a way to help facilitate your dream. I mean, it's amazing that, because we have been around so long and have done so much that, you can reach back and call somebody that maybe you haven't talked to in 10 years, but because you had a good working relationship with them, you can call them back and say, look, I just want you to know I'm working on this now. Would you like to join on? I mean, so Ada, you mentioned that I'm completing a project called Unladylike 2020 that was a 1-hour broadcast special and 26 digital shorts that were 10 to 12 minutes long. The thing that's so interesting to me, and so it's 26 women, 15 of them are women of color, et cetera. The thing that is so interesting to me about that process is that all along the way, from the funding to the partners who came on to help create the educational curriculum, that most of the support that we got was from women. and women who were in critical places just because they immediately, and it wasn't exclusively women because the men really saw it too.
Mm-hmm.
But so right now I'm working on what's going to be a national virtual educational summit to examine why women, especially women of color, why Black women are erased from the history curriculum that is taught in schools K through 12.
Hmm.
I mean, when you look at even, people are talking about monuments now. When you look at even the monuments that are erected around this country, 8% of the monuments in the United States feature a woman at all, any woman. And so the whole idea about, there's, a big dispute that's going on in terms of, are we supposed to maintain these false narratives about 1776 and, George Washington and the founding fathers when we all know they were slaveholders, et cetera, et cetera. So especially when you're talking about projects that people would consider disruptive, that are disrupting the narrative, et cetera, it's like, again, try to figure out who your organic allies are. So in terms of this project that I'm doing, it's just been amazing that I barely almost need to say one sentence. I can tell them two data points, and the women are like, yay, they lay in church waving their arm like, yay, we're there. So it's really important, again, it's the combination of, when I say research, you don't need a research report. You don't need a whole bunch of data, but you do need 1, 2, 3 really, really dramatic data points that really make people go, what? Like, what'd you say? And then trying to figure out who are the people that are the most likely to want to take action and to have the networks that can support you.
To get to this project, Sandy, how many people did you know along the way? Because I'm sure you had to have partners or whatever to even get to this project for you. Were there people that you had partnered with before that brought you on, or how did this even develop where you became a part of this project?
I was executive producer for a PBS 8-part series, eight half hours documentary series called America by the Numbers that was looking at demographic change in the United States and in the areas of the country that demographic change was happening the most as the United States is evolving to a majority non-white nation. And one of the women that I worked with as a line producer on that, who actually helped to produce the pilot for that series, came to me, and this was her dream. Unladylike 2020 was her dream, and she asked me if I would executive produce it for her. So she and I had been working together since 2012 and had such a dynamic, positive work relationship. She said, I know I can't get this done without you. And it's the same, as I said, between the three of us, because we have worked together in so many different ways, and there is that circle of trust. I know I can call Kay at midnight and go, Kay, I can't figure this out. Please help me. And she won't hang up. She'll say, okay, I don't know how you got yourself into this, but this is what I would do. So I think that a lot of times people think that you learn from elders, and I think that I am learning from younger people. Just like we were giving big praise to Maxie and Shatar in terms of what we can learn from them. We're learning from each other. So this is what I was saying when I was saying that that all of these relationships are important. There may be a few you need to trash, but I'm just saying that the relationships that are the most fundamental and that are the most dynamic and are the most contributory to your own clarity and your own success are relationships you don't want to lose.
I think actually people eliminate themselves. Either in terms of relationships, working relationships, partnerships, they eliminate themselves by either not coming through, failing at what they say they're gonna do. It kind of weeds itself out, I think. But I do think that just the importance of fortifying relationships and developing credible reputations do carry you. They carry you through life, through your career.
The thing about fundraising, I'll just say two things real quick. One, funders give to people they like. Regardless, they won't say that. They won't tell you that. but that is the truth. So that you cannot walk into a relationship with a funder, walk in the door, say, "Hi, I want some money." That's not going to work. You have to cultivate that relationship. You have to really create an opportunity for that funder or that person with resources to really get to know you and to really get to know and to have buy-in to the project. Maybe asking them their advice about, well, how would you treat this topic or whatever, more so than starting out the conversation with, can you write me a check? And I think that people really sometimes make that error where they blow a relationship because they start the conversation off at the wrong place. So, so I would say that that's one really critical thing about funding. And I think the other thing about funding is, again, it comes back to the question of research to me. I think that people often don't do the research about who funds what. So every funding organization has established their priorities. So it's important to figure out where the alignment is. I mean, I think that's the critical idea through everything we've said. It's alignment. It is, I can't walk into, there's a foundation that one of my partners is working with now, Cerdna. I mean, the thing that's so interesting is right now, there are so many organizations, whether they're in the commercial world or the philanthropic world, that are committing funding to racial justice and racial justice issues. So this is a critical time, and people are working in that space, that this is really the time, as they say, to hit while the iron is hot, to make sure that you've got your pitch together, you've got your data points together, and you've already figured out what that organization or that individual is interested in, to be able to say, this already ties into something you're doing and you've already stated as your priority.
Sandy brings up a really important point, and that is sometimes it is about timing. You can have the most magical, incredible project, but they're just not ready for it. And but you do the research and you find, and you keep plugging at it, and you keep plugging into people who are ready for it. And you keep going to those horrible receptions at the film festivals and conferences, introducing yourself, taking cards, following up with a nice, polite note, not harassing, but, so that they say, oh, yeah, I remember there's a woman that did blah, blah, blah. I met her at a couple of conferences. And then they reach out to you. So sometimes it's about timing. And but you have to have your tools and all your things in place so that when the time and the opportunity makes itself available, you are ready to take advantage of it.
Yeah, one thing you had mentioned when we had talked earlier was stepping out of your comfort zone. That's where it becomes complicated in terms of trying to get your funding or partnerships. Stepping out of your comfort zones to attend those networking events or conferences or whatever.
And don't talk past the sale. Some people get kind of like in a nervous thing, and they talk, and then people just,
they don't know when to stop.
Tune them out. And so you lost the sale. They were open to it in the beginning, but you talked yourself out of it. So you have to really be careful with that.
Ladies, this conversation is so insightful, so energetic. We thank you all so much for it. Now, I have a question. How have your presentations changed over these years in terms of the proposals, in terms of the reels, in terms of the videos? We look at how digital media has helped us in our production tools, but how has it helped you in your fundraising and in your financing, in your pre-production, in terms of just presenting your ideas?
Well, I would say that you really need to be very descriptive and very succinct and give them what they need. If you notice that most foundations, the proposals are getting, or the applications are getting simpler and shorter. You don't have to do like the whole NEH anymore. Maybe for NEH, but they want to know how does it tie into what we're doing? What are your metric points? A really clever, clear description of what your project is, a nice short presentation reel that hits all those points, or a deck as they call it now, which is nothing but PowerPoint. Send them a deck, and then they will decide, and don't make it 25 slides. You can't say it in 10. You're not clear about what you're pitching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Now, Sandy, also in our early pre-interview, you had mentioned you all had emphasized about cross-generational, engagement. What are some keys that you have found for opening these doors of communication, establishing the doors of communication, and maintaining, and then turning them into action and into works?
Yeah. Well, I have to thank Kay. Kay brought me into a project that she helped us set up, which is at Black Public Media, which is a mentorship program that basically I have been a partner in for. We're about to go into our 5th iteration, and the thing that and it's called 360. It's an incubator and a lab that's competitive, that helps Black media makers to create pitch reels that are really resonant. So we're talking specifically about these are the elements of a pitch that need to be there, regardless of what your what your content is. Mm-hmm. And so the thing that I think is really has been interesting in terms of guiding other people on how to prepare for a pitch, not just doing it myself, is that people have to be clear on what they bring to the table that's unique, and to really feature that, so that what you're doing doesn't feel like it's redundant and it's the same old. Mm-hmm. So, for example, there is a project that I executive produced that ended up as a digital series on for PBS Digital Studios this woman pitched as a SNL type entertainment show about books. And so, so she was so creative that for her pitch, she started her pitch. And so she used to take popular songs like Rihanna songs, Beyonce songs, whatever, and change the words in the songs and make them about books. So she started her pitch with a guitar singing one of those songs. So, so people were so that immediately got people's attention in terms of her skill and her creativity. Someone else in that program was doing a cooking show, and they brought the chef from North Carolina to New York, and the brother was in the lobby of where the pitch was happening making hush puppies. And people are so she got money. Hush puppies.
360 incubator.
Right. People are, that's my regret. I did not get enough hush puppies. I was on the stage emceeing, and I think I got one hush puppy. It was wrong. So I'm saying that now about the hush puppies. So and the project that I just finished executive producing, this Unladylike 2020, basically what we said was that we were going to create, in some ways, a hip hop version of presenting history. So, history is usually presented with black and whites and slow pans and, tumbleweeds. And it is really, really slow. But there's an audience for that. So we decided that we were going to use a fast-paced, so we have in a 10-minute, we just did an analysis. In a 10-minute piece, we had 615 images.
Wow.
10 minutes. So that was roughly an image a second. So that in terms of trying to create new models for doing things, and also we used a high level of art and animation. So when the archival material didn't exist, we had an artist who was painting it, and then we animated it. So people were activated around the fact that this was such a new and novel approach to something that was old school, but we were doing it in a new way.
And it was fabulous, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. So what role, speaking of new school technology, what roles are we seeing for OTT television? What roles are we seeing for mobile apps, for virtual reality, augmented reality, interactive video? What roles are we seeing as we begin to explore these technologies now, especially in this time where we're having to be so creative with our productions?
Well, it's a very, very competitive space. And you know what it took for you to launch a super live stream. And when you started, there weren't that many, platforms that people could live stream on. But that space is getting very, very crowded. So you have, you got to figure out, one, how you can set yourself apart from everyone else. And that's not easy.
Yes.
And then also, how do you find your initial audience? When I was at Black Public Media, we had so many startup African
networks,
distributors who wanted content and they wanted to distribute it and that kind of thing. But it was like, you don't have the resources to do it. You don't have the access in terms of our particular audience. So you've got to really do that work beforehand. How are you going to separate yourself? How are you going to find your audience? How are you going to plug into your network to create visibility for yourself? Can you get on a panel at a conference to show what you do and excite people in the room?
Yes.
Can you do network, connect with media organizations that are always looking for content to promote to their membership? Can you get an opportunity to talk to someone's membership? You've got to get yourself out there and not wait for people to come to you. And because you have a great product. Yes. When you're the first period, Bob Johnson had a very radical idea for BET. But he was the first person out there. Yes. Everybody's trying to do it.
Yep.
How do you get, in this space, how do you get seen and heard?
Yes. I remember the first, one of the first Congressional Black Caucus meetings when Bob Johnson came to pitch to the Congressional Black Caucus the idea for BET. So as you said, at some point, everything is novel. But Maxie, I just want to say that relative to working in the VR and AI space, et cetera, that while the technology and the shiny things are really important, on the other hand, I know that around VR, for example, there's it's almost as if there's a hurdle relative to how do you overcome the challenge of the technology access. I mean, if you're in a situation where you're trying to make a presentation, but you don't have headsets for everybody, for example, how can you create the partnerships or whatever to be able to make sure that you can have a great work, but if the only way you can see it is headsets and you only got 10 and you have how are you going to make sure that the technology and your creativity and the access all meet? And that's when the partnerships are really important.
And the timing too. Because, I first live streamed 25 years ago.
Oh, wow, dude.
I was part of a company called iFilm in 1999 where I licensed the book to them, and they were YouTube 1.0. And so then we get into the video on demand. So it's like if from a research development perspective, you have to know, okay, wait a minute, is this commercial yet? Or is it 10 years away from being viable and sustainable? I unfortunately didn't learn the words viability plans and sustainability plans until my 30s, so we are literally dealing with some of the exact same technology my brother and I were using in the lab in the late 90s. Wow. It's just now at a mass scale. It's now available right here on the phone. And there's business models associated with it in the form of advertising, whether it's pre-rolls, mid-rolls, sponsorship, pay on demand, so now there's matured markets. So what I told my wife and I said, okay, let's not innovate anymore right now. Let's go reach back.
Right.
Let's reach back a little bit, because
that's why, especially in the media field, people talk about either vertical or horizontal growth. right? So horizontal growth can mean that, as you said, in terms of the core that you've already built, you don't have to innovate anymore. You just have to find partners that help you expand your reach. If you were trying to expand vertically, then you'd be trying to figure out how are the 15 different ways that I can repurpose this one, one product or whatever.
Yes.
So, for example, I was telling you, I was working with this VR producer, and we had an issue about we want to do a mass event. How can you do it? How can you find the headsets to do it? He went straight to Oculus and created a partnership so that Oculus basically provided the headsets. So the thing that I find is really interesting is that when people talk about youth, there are so many young entrepreneurs that are out there that are working in areas that you can partner with that can help bring, if not money, can help bring material resources to help you, realize your dream in terms of, of a strategic partnership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not always about strategic cash. It's not always about getting the cash. It's about getting other resources.
That's right.
They may give you
location, giveaway, product. Yeah.
They might give you a media partner. They make so that you can get better access and media. They have different resources. So don't always think about cash.
Yeah.
Because it takes cash to buy those things, but if someone gives it to you, you don't need that.
Right. The in-kind can be just as valuable. Yes. And Maxie, you're getting a lot of love out there for being the entrepreneur. Yes. Thank you for jumping in.
But also talking about reaching back, if you really think about it, the whole distribution model for Sankofa was reaching back because Heidi Garima was using the Oscar Michaud model for independent film distribution.
Yes.
And when you look at that legacy and that history, he used to rent his own theaters because some theaters wouldn't let Black people see films. So he and other filmmakers of his time would have to rent the theater and then figure out where the Black people were, which was not hard because it was on the other side of the track, and to get them to the theater for that. And we basically used that model as well.
And build upon it. You built
upon it.
You added product to it too.
We had a whole system of volunteers. Do you know what it's like to launch a film and state city by city? We developed what we call the Children of Sankofa. We developed a whole network of volunteers for every city that we went to, and partner with the stakeholders. You want to say something, Ada?
No, say who the stakeholders are. The churches. Go ahead and say who you got together. The community organizer.
Community organizations, churches. We got Black mayors in cities.
Black press.
And we actually had Black press back then.
Yeah.
True, we did.
Yes, we did.
We didn't have social media. And then we also had, and we found the people who did promotions in the cities for like music, because they knew how to distribute the flyers and the posters and get them up in the communities and the like.
The street patrols, that's what we used to call them, the street patrols, yeah.
Exactly. So not being able to put a big ad in the major daily, not being able to get on a TV program did not hinder us in terms of reaching our community, our intended audience for that film. But we had to reach back and use all those old strategies. Now you can use social media, but you still have to be even strategic and smart about that.
But Kay, back then it was really word of mouth. I mean, it was getting on a few NPRs and a few paper reviews, but it was really word of mouth, like beating the drum. I mean, people took it upon themselves because of their passion for what the film brought to them. And
but
I was gonna say, what's so interesting, because Madawi Hailey's son was a baby during that time. And he gets picked up by a Ray. So to me, Array is a modern extension of what Heidi and you and everybody started, because now they don't have to go four-walling city by city. They partnered with a Netflix who has a wider,
region
to reach everybody worldwide, and so it's amazing.
But she started out as a publicist.
Yes.
She was able to link up with an incredible cinematographer who helped show her how to make great films, and build on those relationships. Where she eventually, you got Oprah, you got Netflix, and all these other celebrities. But she started out being a publicist.
I remember she used to come through BET there in the 90s. Yes. But there's one thing, Ada, you said it was the word of mouth, but I think Kay used the word earlier. Was it superstructure or super organization that you had used? Was that Sandy or Kay? One of you had used the term about what you all had built was in that momentum. You built a super organization and a super structure. So it's not because so many people tried to replicate afterwards and they didn't have that structure, so they may have been able to get word of mouth. What you say?
But also,
they didn't have Kay Shaw.
But also, we leveraged the relationships in every city for the next city. So we would tell all of our volunteers, our audiences, we're going to Chicago next. Call all your friends and family members, and you talk about word of mouth. We used those networks. We didn't come into a city blind. Yes. We did a lot of planning before we came, and developed relationships and built on the networks that we had previously with the churches or whomever. But there was a lot of planning involved for every city that we opened in. And we were fortunate to have a lot of goodwill in our community then, because, they were looking for a Sankofa. There was nothing like a Sankofa being shown to Black people to show that we were not slaves. We were enslaved Africans who resisted our enslavement. That was really a radical idea at the time.
So Kay, I just wanted to ask you, it's really interesting. What do you think about the Janae Monáe piece that she did, which in some ways really reminds me as a Sankofa throwback, really?
Yeah. Antebellum,
right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have not seen that.
Okay,
I love
it's really kind of a modern. It's an updated version in some ways.
Yep, absolutely, we thought the same thing.
When she goes back in time or something.
Well, it's the same structure as Sankofa of a modern day woman in a certain situation that goes through the time lapse, and then she's back picking cotton. Yeah.
So in building partnerships and superstructures today, what would be some of the key action steps or advice that you all will offer in terms of, evaluating potential partners or collaborators in order to build, to find these people in these respective technical chambers, artistic chambers, creative chambers, to build those coalitions? You've given a lot of advice, but if you were starting out today at this moment to build an organization, what would be some of the first steps you would take?
That is, starting out as a young person or starting out as who I am now, because the thing is, as you get older, you build and build and build, and you have these connections that you can then like call a Sandy, call a Ada, call a Hailey or whatever. I would say you really need to lean on friends and classmates initially. Get them to buy into your dream, and then lay out roles for everybody. Because everybody brings something to the table.
Yeah.
My uncle is blah blah, works at blah blah blah. My cousin knows such and such, and you build a structure so that you can take advantage of those networks and those opportunities. I would and you give people who want to help you the tools to help you. You build toolkits. I would have a social media toolkit. Every project that I worked on at Black Public Media, I always had a social media toolkit. Before we would have a press toolkit, Now we have a social media toolkit in terms of who to tap into, and we do that research. I would go to on Twitter and research everybody. If it's a book, I would research authors, publishers, and blah blah blah. Follow them and start promoting what I'm doing. So you have to have people and have people with skills in those areas, and would take the time and be methodical and keep lists. And you can't like connect with someone and then they not hear from you for another 5 months. It takes a lot of energy. Social media takes a lot of time and energy because you really do have to keep up with it. But you have to be really smart and strategic about it, and have someone who has that skill, who has that gift, and will stay with it. But I would say that having a social media person is very, very key. Doing the research about who your target audience is and the impact you can have. Finding out the funders who support work at reaching to those audiences. And it doesn't always have to be a media funder. If you have a social issue that you are your content is around, non-media organizations will support that too. Like what Sandy was saying about the women's film that she did.
Yeah.
So it's really about putting together an organization or a structure, like Ada had to do for her
Festival.
San Antonio Black National Film Festival, like Sandy had to do when she put together America by the Numbers. The organization I work for was one of her funders and promoters and supporters within CPB and PBS.
Wow.
You know, I would only add another thing. I mean, we could keep talking forever, but you know, having a really compelling deck is very, very important to make sure that you've got a tool that answers all the questions without you having to be there, so that your basic pitch, the why it's important, again, the who that you plan to reach, what the benefit and impact will be, needs to really be very concisely stated, but not like in a narrative, a whole bunch of pieces of paper. It needs to be presented in a way that's visually exciting, that you give people a sense of what the end product is actually going to look like. So that I think that you know, we are in a stage now where people are really looking for, I would say, bite-sized information.
Yes.
That none of us have time to be reading, you know, as Kay said, something that's 25 pages or 25 slides or whatever. When we talk about pitches, you know, people always talk about what's your elevator pitch? What is the thing that you can say in the amount of time that you'd be riding on in an elevator with somebody? So we have to be able to figure out a way to cull down the essential points of our message, regardless of what it is we're trying to communicate, to make sure that we can say it succinctly, we can say it in a compelling way, we can take somebody through the stages of how it's going to happen and what the result is going to be. It can't just be, we can't pick something and just say, this is our dream project, I want to do it. That's not enough. We've got to be able to say who it's reaching, how it's going to benefit people, and what the outcome is going to be. And so I think that's the thing that we were talking about. The thing is, we have to be able to show impact.
Well, the beautiful thing, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say, you may not be the best person to do that pitch. You might be an incredible writer and filmmaker and have an incredible vision, but you may not be the person to be in the room with the funder.
That's
you know, so that's, you know, Sandy has been hired as an executive producer on a lot of projects because she can be in the room with a funder, with other producers, as well as the creator, and make it work. And she's the person who can put together the deck and pitch the project. So you may not recognize what your strengths are.
That's right. Yeah.
And the strengths of your team, and not let your ego get involved in. I remember highly
What?
Holly will always say, and be willing to take risks. I have not had an experience since Sankofa where every time I want to execute a new idea, why don't we do this? Someone wouldn't block me. We're like, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Has it been done before? Blah, blah, blah. Heidi would say, I give you permission to fuck up my film.
That sounds like him.
and as a result, we innovated without the benefit of the technology. Can you imagine if we had that technology today? Back then, we were able to innovate a whole distribution model, starting out humbly in one city and then going national.
With one print at a time.
but it was about taking risks and taking advantage of opportunities when you saw them. And that's what
I was going to mention about look at how wonderful it is how we can measure impact nowadays. Look at how we have Google Analytics and YouTube Analytics and iTunes and so there's data that there's data that can verify. And not only that though, these YouTubers are doing just like you all did, Kay, where they go look at their analytics and they see where they're popular, and then they go buy ads or they go perform there or they go target people based upon the demographics and that analysis, and that's some of the amazing ways that they're using this, this scary data that's being collected on us.
It is amazing. It's at their fingertips.
Yes. So we've been talking for an hour, you guys. This is wonderful.
Wow.
Ada, are there any other questions you would like to,
No,
go?
I think both Kay and Sandy, I don't know, you all seem to have this eagle eye view with whatever you get into, whatever you take on, you look at the whole 360 of it, and you're able to go in and, I don't know, make it successful. I don't know. You all have this little magic power in you that we don't know about, but I appreciate you both and all that you have, instilled in me. And, I'm glad that when I call you.
We are Southern Black women making a way out of no way.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is. And we've got to teach the next generation to be able to do that too.
Yes. Well, you all are doing it. And, we thank you so much. Ada, Shatar, I'd like you guys to have some final words and we'll wrap up and look forward to some future discussions. And any way that we can help you all, it would be our honor and our pleasure as well.
I just want to say, Maxie and Shatar, we just appreciate you so much. Thank you for the cross-generational collaboration and cooperation. And I think that, Ada, you're giving it up to Kay and I, but we give it up to you also.
Yes, indeed, Ada.
I think that the humility to be open to learning from each other is the thing that has sustained us all.
Yeah. There's nothing I can say to follow that, Shatar. You can take that.
All right.
Same here. I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for all of the viewers who are watching right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and across social media. My name again is Shatar Safira Collier. I am here with Super Live Streams TV, here with the founder, Maxie D. Collier, Ada Babino, founder of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival, Miss Sandra Rattley, and Miss Kay Shaw, both executive directors and executive producers. We thank you so much for joining us for this panel on funding and strategic partnerships. And please continue to watch Super Live Streams TV, as well as all of the initiatives that are here by our team and our panelists. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you at the next event. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Stay safe, ladies.
Yes.
Keep creating.